Since the concept of civilization, the human being has been focused to explore, create, and understand its reality through various resources, methods, and approaches. Although every source used for the interpretation of human reality has a very important impact on each historical context. Not all of them can be defined by established concept. Art, being one of those subjective terms, has various approaches to portray and illustrate reality, beginning with the Socratic imitation known as mimesis, all up to the unrealistic, deformed, and abstract dimension of the feelings, expressions, and emotions. So, all of these different points of view leave us with an unanswered question: what is exactly art? For some people, it can be the manifestation of feelings and human desires, while for others, it seems to be a realistic critique against society. This causes a great branch within its definition and maintains it as one of the most known mysteries of human history. Nonetheless, within art, there are several terms that conjunction build up the vocabulary necessary for its total understanding. First, we will talk about the simplest and most important element of art: lines. As we already know, a line is a continuous mark made on a surface used for the creation of images. It can be vertical, horizontal, curved, diagonal, irregular, and much more. Depending on its direction, it will create a different impact on the observer, and subsequently a different meaning to the entire work. Moving on, what artists use to set the mood and context of a painting are colors. These variations transmit feelings to the spectator and are composed of three main properties, those being hue, value, and intensity. Within a painting, there are different color schemes that demonstrate the possible combinations of colors, meaning they can be classified on monochromatic, analog, or complementary, and can be divided in primary, secondary, and tertiary according to their combinations made. Continuing with the necessary elements to describe an artwork, it's a critical factor the determination of different dimensions in which figures are shown. This aspect is simply explained by shapes, which are the objects with height and weight, and forms, which, contrary to the shapes, are the objects with height, weight, and width. Within the mentioned dimensions of a project, the space will determine the distance between the different points of an object, in order to help the observer to identify the desired things highlighted by the artist. And finally, the artist can generate through the appearance of its works the texture of it. Until here, we have taken into consideration the main concepts of art for its comprehension. However, the interpretation beyond the image and the real meaning of the work is obtained through the interconnection between iconography, which explains the context within it through the symbols present in it, and iconology, that implies a previous understanding of the origin of an image. Since art is a very subjective topic, different theories and methodologies can be used for the analysis and subsequently for its unique interpretation. According to Snyder, there are three main ways to grasp an artwork. First one, semiology, that studies the signifier and the signified of the signs within an artwork. Second, study of the life of the artist. As its name suggests, the biographic studies made to artists in order to understand the context, origins, and reasons of its work. Third one, psychoanalysis, is a method created by Sigmund Freud that focuses on the past of an artist to explain the impact of its present. Although all of the mentioned methodologies are useful to criticize art in a structured way, these human disciplines sometimes need the intervention of other science, such as psychology or linguistics, to generate a deeper and more accurate understanding of the subject of study. Mitter and Ragnes have proposed 4 basic steps for the analysis of art through its history. Those are: description. Basically, is the answer for all WH questions: where, what, when, why, and whom. Through its application to the spectator, will know most of the aspects inside the work. Analysis. This step refers to the admiration and recognition of the style of each artist, meaning that it will focus on the unique use of elements by each artist as well as the principle that he or she uses. Then we get interpretation, which, in short words, it refers to the acknowledge of non-obvious things within the work, always keeping in mind established facts. The message is created through the relation between what you know and what you see. Judging. This is maybe the most important step of all, since it creates a balance among knowledge and opinion. Through its application, people can select only the important aspects from a work and remark them as the main contribution for society. Since the conception of the first civilization, the concept of God has been the main checkpoint for the establishment and development of most of the artistic, scientific, and psychological movements within history, as well as the main inspiration for the continuous improvement to human thought. A perfect example for this impact are the different myths and legends that have been part of each culture. Speaking of culture, this concept is fundamental for the development of artistic thought, such as well as the whole representation of human context, since without it, the unique characteristics and aspects from each human tradition, alike its own problematics within a social aspect, would disappear, and subsequently the unicity of each artist's mind will be transformed into a boring conjunction of ambiguity and nonsense. Now, in order to explore deeper the history of art, we need to turn back all up to the prehistoric period of humanity named as Stone Age, which is known as the period before grading system exists. The historical stage is divided into three different ages: Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic. As it is known, the pharaoh was the main ruler of all the vast territory of Egypt. This aspect is important to consider due to the fact of all the monuments, structures, and artworks were made for the representation of his glory, as well as his impact with society. For instance, the most important and remarkable monument of its culture, the pyramids, serve as grave where the pharaoh, alike his family, would save their mummified bodies and their most important possessions so they can enjoy the afterlife. Another example of the glorification of its king is the Palette of Narmer, which basically is a palette that describes the power of the pharaoh Narmer. However, Egyptian art not only revolved around human greatness. In fact, it was mainly used for the preservation of their memory of those who were relevant to the culture, as well as the clear manifestation of their beliefs such as gods, religion, and creeds. On the other side, Mesopotamian civilization, being just as important as Egyptians, started to create their monuments and governments based on the cuneiform grading system, as well as the established city-state structure. Are within it wasn't supported by the afterlife like Egyptians. Instead, most of their monuments, such as ziggurats, focus on the representation for the balance of transition between gods and humans. The most important aspect of this culture, however, was the creation of the cuneiform grading system. This aspect allows civilizations to elaborate literary work that arrange the explanation of the origin of gods as well as humans. One of the most representative poems that were created using this system was the Epic of Gilgamesh, in which the entire concept of heroism and success is remade. The last aspect of remark of Mesopotamia is the elaboration of Hammurabi's code, which was written by King of Babylon, Hammurabi, and stated different laws and punishments, such as the Talon law, to reach the equality among classes. Chinese culture was considered as the center of art from East Asia, since its influence in other nations, such as Korea or Japan, is very notorious. Now, focusing on more paintings, the most important artwork was The Six Canons of Painting by Si Ho. In this book, the author stated the six canons that offer the required vision of a painting, those being animation through spirit consonance, structural method in the use of the brush, fidelity to the object in portraying forms, conformity to kind in applying colors, proper planning in the placing of elements, and transmission of the experience of the past in making copies. Now let's move to Persia. This civilization was characterized by having big architecture construction with very simple designs, such as birds, ibexes, and even goats. Also, columns were popular within a Persian architecture, even in a Hall of King Artaxerxes place where there are lots of patterns, such as motifs that represent the Persian animal capital. Continuing with our explanation, now let's move to Hinduism, that its name suggests comes from India. The Indian culture believed that the perspective generated art works needed to feel four basic concepts. Dharma is the search for peace and harmony. Artha, medium to reach Dharma and consists on those important aspects for living. Kama are the emotions, desires, and sexually present in the human being. Moksha refers to the liberation from death. All of these codes serve to Indian people as guidance to really live and enjoy life. So based on this, we can conclude that art within India was not made with a religious sense, but with some sensuous one. However, inside their templates, we can still find some artworks dedicated entirely to gods like Vishnu, Shiva, or Devi. Moving on with the video, let's check Greek culture. These thoughts of art were related to rationalism, hierarchical social structure of the sick, and idealized beauty. The last point is very remarkable, and due to the fact it affected the idea of all the artistic works. This aspect can be seen in different artistic expressions, such as sculptures, Exploring deeper, the Greek sculptures can be divided into three periods: the Archaic, Early Classical, and Classical. In architecture, the columns were divided in Doric, Iconic, and Corinthian. And finally, we arrived to the most adaptive culture of all, Rome. We mentioned the word adaptive since we were able to adapt their beliefs into religions, laws, and languages from the territories they conquered. Some important innovations by this culture were the development of aqueducts and the implementation of triumphal arch, which is a structure created to celebrate the achievements of the military within architecture. As we have seen through the entire video, although the art doesn't have established definition, it can be idealized and represented by the different countries and cultures around the world. What we try to say is that culture gives meaning to art, while always provide sense and meaning to other culture. Both concepts have created and stated the basis for human being development, and without them, the characteristic unicity of mankind wouldn't be relevant to the rapid path of